I'm super excited to be with you guys today and excited to hear how many folks actually are on the webinar. This work that we're talking about today is critically important. It's really inspiring and it's transformative. It's actually what credit unions were created to do, and I know that's why you get excited about it as well. I know I speak for each of the panel members when I say we love to talk about this stuff, and we're glad you're here to listen, learn, and most importantly, to share. Speaking of the panel members, we have on the next slide, you can see three of us today, some heavy hitters. My wife likes to remind me from time to time that economists are people that didn't have the personality to become accountants. And what that means as a practical matter is that I'm typically behind a computer screen looking at data, and I really love the opportunity to actually interact with human beings. So I'm here. My job at CUNA is policy analysis. I support CUNA's advocacy efforts. I'm an economist by training, which means that as a practical matter, I spend a lot of my time describing what the world looks like and only occasionally kind of venture out into prescriptive ideas, what I think the world should look like. But I guess the bottom line is that means that I'm not a doer. My co-panelists are definitely doers. They're the headliners here. Over the course of their careers, and they're going to talk a little bit more in detail about what they've been up to, but over the course of their careers, they've directly and indirectly changed millions of lives across the country. They've improved communities in measurable ways. They've planted seeds. They've come up with new and compelling ways to do more with less and to bring other people into this work and to inspire and ignite really more action. Cathie Mahon is with us today, and I'd be shocked if there's anybody on the webinar that doesn't know Cathie. On the off chance, I'll just mention that she's the president and CEO of Inclusiv, and she's going to tell you a bit more about Inclusiv and the good work that they do. Berman is also with us. She's co-founder and CEO of CNote, a resource that I believe every credit union should know about. And also, by the way, a CUNA strategic services partner. We have a modest agenda. It appears on this next slide. And you can see that we're just going to really cover four things. I'm going to tell you a little bit about CUNA and our journey along this financial well-being path. And then I'll turn it over to Cathie. She can talk about Inclusiv and the things that they can provide you actually at no cost. And then Kat will take over and talk about CNote and the exciting opportunities they have for you. We're going to leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, and hopefully as we go, you'll have some of those that build up and we can address those. Okay, so the next slide basically is an overview of what I want to touch on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this topic, but I did want to tell you what we as a National Trade Association, what CUNA has been up to for the last year or so. About a year ago, on the main stage at our Governmental Affairs Conference, our CEO, Jim Nussel, got in front of the group with Gigi Highland, who's the head of CUNA's foundation. And those two folks got up there to talk a bit about a new development at CUNA, an internal project that we were rolling out, and a strategic shift. So this journey of financial well-being at CUNA was something that we were thinking about internally for ourselves. And the deal was that we realized that we were operating with a strategic plan for many years, a good strategic plan, but that strategic plan did not address in an obvious way the connection between what credit unions do and what we do. So we felt like we needed to ensure really kind of two things. One, that everybody within this organization, everybody within the National Trade Association recognizes what credit unions were created for, number one, and number two, that they see in their work the credit union mission and how they help credit unions fulfill that mission. We sort of codified that idea in a renewed strategic plan that was adopted by our board late last year. I'm almost always asked, well, why is CUNA doing this? And I really like to address that right up front. We are an advocacy organization first and foremost. But we also recognize that the need for this work is great. I arrived on the scene here about 30 years ago. And since that time, I actually have this side hustle where I do economic update presentations, talk about the macroeconomy and how it's affecting credit union members, ultimately how it affects credit unions. And during the course of those presentations, almost always, I do a little riff on dislocations that we're seeing in the marketplace. I do a little riff on the disparities that we see and the growing disparities that we see, both from the standpoint of income and net worth, wealth, essentially, in America that have been obvious over the last 20 or 30 years and that have been growing over the last 20 or 30 years, that have accelerated over the last 2 years. So we recognize that the need is great. It's the right thing to do. That's our primary motivation. But beyond that, what we really want to do is supercharge the advocacy efforts of the organization. So we want that mission alignment. We know that credit unions collectively were created for one reason, and it's codified in every credit union's mission statement. Those mission statements say something around the language that appeared in the Federal Credit Union Act. I'll bet you, if you look at yours individually, it says probably something about our credit union was created to encourage thrift and to give people access to credit for provident and productive purposes. Some variation of that. It's kind of stilted, old-fashioned language. We think that a newer way of expressing that idea is financial well-being for all. And so that's kind of where we're going with this journey. We essentially have found in our interactions with policymakers that increasingly the compelling, impactful stories that we tell don't get us where we need to be. That doesn't mean they're not important. They're critically important for what we do. We need more stories. But we're increasingly hearing from policymakers that they want more proof, and specifically, they want more data-based proof on credit union impact and mission fulfillment. And so that's why we're on this journey. We believe in many respects that this, when all is said and done, is a matter of credit union survival. It is a matter of credit unions maintaining their unique tax status in the marketplace. It is a matter, and I can say this from personal experience, I spent 10 years early in my career in the savings and loan industry, back when there was a savings and loan industry. That industry has now been folded into the banking industry. We definitely don't want that to happen to credit unions. That's sort of the tip of the iceberg in terms of where we've been and where we're going. I recorded a video that's about a half-hour long, maybe even a little bit longer than that. And the link to that video is in this PowerPoint, which we're going to share with you. So I want you to, if you're interested more in kind of where we're going and why we're going there, a lot of the proof points and so forth, some of which may be helpful in your journey as well, definitely check out that video, which I posted in our economic update late in December. On this next slide, you can see where I think, if you forget everything else that I've just said, the main takeaway is that if you're on this journey, no matter where you are on this journey, and you're looking for free resources, please, please, please be sure to take a look at CUNA's foundation website. And especially here I've highlighted, you can see the drop-down menu where the blue box is hanging down from the main menu. There's a main menu choice that says financial well-being for all, and you can see some of the details underneath that menu. A couple of things I want to draw your attention to. There's a lot of free stuff here in the first place, but just a couple that I think that will help you to supercharge your credit union's mission. Number one, be sure to look at the measurement tab. That talks a lot about how we think about financial well-being and then how you can measure financial well-being. The Take Action tab basically is it's not actually a checklist, but it can serve as a pretty good checklist so that, again, no matter where you are in your journey, you can make sure that some of the fundamental building blocks of an effective plan on community impact are in place. And then finally, there's also some information under that tab on how you can apply for and obtain grants around building out a more effective effort to improve your members' financial well-being. So remember that, if nothing else. The website address appears at the top of this slide, as you can see. I also want to mention one thing. I'd be remiss if I did not mention this, although I will point out that this is not free of charge. Having said that, it is one of the most impactful events that I've participated in my nearly 30-year career here at CUNA. Be sure to look at the tab, if you have some money to spend, that says Events and Engagements. And there I want to draw your attention to the CU FinHealth event, which will be occurring on April 25th through 27th in San Antonio, Texas. A transformative event, if ever there was one, on the topic of how to improve your members' lives and improve your impact throughout the communities that you serve. It is a convening of a large number of like-minded individuals who will inspire you, who will allow you to not only cooperate more effectively, but cross-pollinate, and it's really impactful. So wanted to mention that. And then the next slide here is essentially a picture of my team, the group of economists here in the policy analysis area. So this is the core team that's working on the data aspect of the journey that CUNA is on. I want you to know these folks. Don't be shy about contacting these folks. They can help you with data. They can help you in terms of, help think about essentially building out a data-based measurement system. We, for our part, have just recently actually acquired the Equifax database, 27 billion records with a B, that we think will help us improve our narrative around the multitude of ways that that credit unions collectively help members better spend, save, borrow, and plan with proof points and at a granular level. We're hoping, because this data does actually appear at a very fine level, that we can do that sort of thing at the congressional district level. That's what we're working toward, and we welcome any thoughts, any ideas, any interactions in terms of maybe some of the ways that you think about measurement and how we might be able to incorporate that in what we're doing. Okay, so I'll pause for now, turn it over to Cathie, and Cathie, what's Inclusiv, and what are you up to?
Wow, thanks, Mike. And I want to get access to some of that data. I've taken notes here. Inclusiv is a national network of community development credit unions. And I'm going to say our work is really, we're kind of ourselves a mission-driven nonprofit. Our goal is to deepen the community impact of credit unions by helping credit unions reach and serve communities and individuals who have historically lacked access to quality financial services, and bring the beauty of the credit union products and services and the credit union model to as many people as possible. And we're quite evangelical about that. We really, we believe strongly that credit unions are the best vehicle to build wealth among individuals and communities that have historically been locked out. So we have a network. It's about 450 members in 47 states, DC and Puerto Rico. We serve collectively about almost 17 million members in predominantly low-income and underserved communities. What we do as an organization is both serve as a network that does sort of advocacy around the space that we focus on is really how can we drive an advocacy agenda that brings opportunities to community development credit unions that brings greater resources to support the work of credit unions going deeper in their communities, and to provide kind of a series of supports around that. So we also ourselves run a CDFI, and we are, as a CDFI intermediary, we raise capital and deploy that in our member institutions. And we also provide a lot of capacity building and technical assistance services. So if we go to the next slide, it'll show you a little bit. I'll talk you through a little bit of a pathway to financial inclusion and community development as we see it as Inclusiv. And the first step really is we try to reach out to like-minded credit unions who really know that they want to be oriented towards community development mission, towards a financial inclusion mission. We want you to consider joining us. And as a member, we provide a whole range of supports to help you think about your pathway to go deeper in your community. So we do things like we provide an eligibility analysis that looks at your loan data, looks at the opportunities or needs in the target markets that you might be serving in your field of membership. And we help you think through how you design a strategy to better reach and serve parts of your population, parts of your field of membership that you're not currently serving as well as you'd like to. We work with our members around creating kind of lending products, services, and sort of doing a whole lending profile, really thinking about what are the types of credit needs in communities that are not being well served, and how can you look at your own products and services and adapt them to better serving the populations that need you most. We then work on kind of strategies around how do you take that and put it into a bigger strategic plan, looking at the sort of the opportunities in the marketplace, figuring out who potential partners are, how do you want to drive and gather resources to help fuel your moving into this space, and how do we help you think through kind of the way in which you can best match up what it is the credit union delivers with the needs that are most obvious on the ground. And finally, we take you through that third step, that ultimate step of moving on to a pathway of really being an institution oriented towards a community development mission, right? So thinking about going through the certification, becoming a CDFI, getting an annual certification, going through the annual certification reporting process, looking at getting access to grant opportunities, providing ongoing technical assistance, and something we call the CDFI Learning Center. All of these, once you join our membership, kind of all of these steps are things that we do as a benefit of membership. It is our mission to help provide the tools that are going to move as many credit unions into delivering products and services where you're needed most. So maybe if we go to the next slide, I can tell you a little bit about, we also spend a lot of time helping credit unions think about why they might want to move into a deeper engagement around financial inclusion and around community development in your fields of membership. And one of the things that's been most effective in that space is with the data that we collect from our members as we're helping them go through an annual CDFI certification report, we collect a huge amount of lending data. And we can cross-tab that around financial performance data. And for the past 5 years, we have looked at historical, 5 years worth of data of community development credit unions, and have found that credit unions that focus on financial inclusion often outperform their peers in their asset class. And that is something that I think is really important for everybody to kind of take note of. It used to be we had a conversation about why mission mattered and how you think about mission versus margin. That's not the case anymore. Mission is now the opportunity for greater margin. And why is that? Credit unions that focus on financial inclusion tend to outperform their peers because they grow faster, there's more demand for their products, they're much more deployed, they're able to gather new members and new leadership and new opportunities into the credit union. They have developed community partnerships, they can attract resources, and at the end of the day, they are able to grow and perform and earn at a higher rate than their peers. It's particularly important to note that we'll make sure we get you access to the reports and you can dig into these charts. But if you look at, it's particularly important for those credit unions that are under $50 million in assets. That is a part of our movement that has been consolidating and declining in recent years. Those credit unions that double down on a financial inclusion mission are able to grow at a far greater rate than their peers. And that's across all asset categories, but it's particularly pronounced if you're in the smaller credit union category. So our goal is to get as many credit unions thinking about opportunities for reaching and serving new people, new communities who desperately need your services and who do well with your products, because your products are designed for them to succeed, which is a critical point. If we move to the next slide, one of the ways that we go through this process and support credit unions to move into a financial inclusion mission is we have, over the years, we've designed a huge amount of training resources and done a huge amount of technical assistance. And this year, thanks to some support from the CUNA Mutual Group, we were able to pull it all together into a CDFI learning center. And we have developed with the University of New Hampshire Cathie Institute and their Center for Impact Finance, we've created a CDFI Learning Center course that helps credit unions kind of walk through the basics of learning about becoming a CDFI, learning about the opportunities, learning about the strategies, thinking through sustainable strategies and models. It's not a one size fits all. There's a lot of different ways that you might come to design your own strategies for serving low income and underserved communities. And so we want to expose you to as many different ways to do that as possible. So we have a great course. It's free to all credit unions to kind of come through it, but we do ask you to make that commitment to participate in the full course. And we have a link here that we'll make sure goes out in the presentation about how you can learn more about that. And then next, I'll just say another way to help. If we go to the next slide, another way to help credit unions on this pathway towards deepening their impact and moving into communities that really need their services is thinking about capital. And, this little simple inverse triangle is a way of sort of looking at when you think about your capital, the way you stack your capital on your balance sheet. Credit unions, have to maintain a 7% or more net worth ratio. No surprise to anybody. Oftentimes, credit unions that are moving into new markets may want to ensure they have a little bit more, maybe 8 or 9% total net worth, to be able to show their regulators that they've contemplated the potential risk of starting new activities or starting in new populations. It's really important to think about ways to kind of build your net worth that will support the growth of your organization. And we know that building primary capital can be difficult. If you're doing it just through retained earnings, that's a very slow process. Inclusiv offers secondary capital. We raise secondary capital from impact investors, and we're able to reinvest that into credit unions, low-income designated credit unions that are able to accept the secondary capital. And that becomes an engine of opportunity and growth. It enables you to then take on non-member deposits and to also grow your member deposit base. I know a lot of credit unions right now have high liquidity and are looking for ways that they can continue to grow, but they're getting some strain on their net worth ratio. If you're a low-income designated credit union and you really want to think about moving into new markets and moving towards a financial inclusion mission, we'd love to talk to you about the opportunities to think about secondary capital as an opportunity for driving that growth. And then I think the next slide maybe is, that was it. Yeah, so that basically is some of the resources that we offer. We are committed to as many credit unions moving forward on this journey as we can. So we look forward to hearing from anybody for more information and working with you all to help you get there. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Mike. Or maybe, I'm sorry, maybe let me turn it over to Kat. And let me say thank you to Kat for helping to pull us all together. And with that, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, hello to each. Thanks again for joining us today. And my special thanks to Mike, to CUNA, to Cathie, and Inclusiv already for the decades of incredible work you've done in our communities, and to each of you on this call, because I know you're already doing the hard work, and hopefully what I'm about to share will help expand and deepen that work. Next slide, please. So my name is Kat Berman. I am privileged to get to be CEO of an organization called CNote. We are a woman-led social enterprise on a mission to close the wealth gap in the United States. And our how is supporting incredible institutions like yours. There's a lot of ways we believe we can step into economic justice, but for us at CNote, we know that there are thousands of incredible credit unions across the country showing up every day to make sure that there's more access to capital, more access to economic opportunity and options. And we want to support you. So we started this organization to do exactly that. And we are proud to get to support community finance institutions around the country with a very large network of CDFIs and low-income designated credit union partners. We are 100% focused on moving capital and visibility and support to our partners. Our job really is to make sure that institutions like you are supported, are capitalized, and frankly, given the attention and the access that you deserve for doing all of this work for years. And we do this by working with a group of mission-driven impact investors and being a bridge. Our programs and our products, I should say our services, are free for credit unions. So everything I'm about to share with you today costs $0. And if you're curious how we make money, it's through our impact investors. So our investors help us keep the lights on so that we can actually offer these suite of services to you at no cost. And just a few of our great partners and accolades below. Next slide. So natural alignment with credit unions. Like I shared, for CNote, we felt that credit unions, the industry, the model, speaks so deeply to what we believe is the future of this country. As we think about access to financial opportunity and truly democratized access to financial opportunity, we don't look farther than mission-driven deposit institutions and the strength of the credit union industry. And so a few of the areas that we are excited to hopefully bring are access to a new base of, frankly, organizations and investors that should know about you, that should love you as much as we do, and should support you. And so we try to bring that visibility, those partnerships, and that technology to make it easier for credit unions, and specifically mission-driven low-income designated CDFI credit unions, to connect up with a new base of impact investors that can help on a variety of fronts. Our shared goal really is to deliver new opportunities for you for growth and impact so that you can continue to do the work you do and deepen your mission, your impact in your community. Next slide. So let me get specific in how we work. So if you think about CNote, there's kind of two parts of it. On one end, we get to work with a network of incredible credit unions across the country. And on the other end, we get to work with a network of what we call corporate impact investors. And a lot of these are household names. These are the Netflix, the Starbucks, the PayPals of the world, who, you know, we may know of through different parts of our life. We may even use their products and services, but we may never have thought of them as someone supporting credit unions. Well, we're hopefully here to change that. So our role here is to really educate a lot of these large corporations on the importance of your work and the important role that you have in driving more economic opportunity across the country and in your community more specifically. And so we have fostered these corporate relationships and then offer a suite of ways to connect you to the different ways these large corporations want to connect with credit unions. Let me give you a few examples. One is to a low-cost base of sticky deposits. As many of you have probably heard, there are quite a few announcements that have been made over the last couple years, year and a half, around corporations hoping to get into new opportunities to drive wealth creation or drive more racial justice. But the how can be very tricky, and doing it in a way that's actually helpful to you and helpful to your balance sheet and to your growth efforts is really the trick. And so what we've created at CNote is almost a faucet where you can turn on and off deposits as you need it. Many of you on the call today may be sitting on plenty of deposits and couldn't even think about taking any more. Or you're thinking, but maybe in 6 months, I might need it. Or you may be an ESIP recipient and say, wow, as I think about my capital strategy moving forward this year and next, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get a big chunk of deposits. Whatever it is and however that works for you, we want to support you for your timing. And so that means being able to provide those low-cost deposits and that access free of charge, non-brokered, coming to you when you need it the most. So that's kind of the faucet that we do, from corporations hoping to bring those over to you, to the timing and the type that's helpful for you. The second is around visibility. So again, we work with some very large names with some very large branding budgets and some very large opportunities to really use that influence for good. How do we really get your credit union the visibility to increase the awareness and increase membership opportunities to those corporations and to their audiences? And then, of course, access to growth opportunities outside of deposits. So many of our corporate partners are looking at a lot of different ways to support you. Inclusiv is an incredible partner of secondary capital. So how do we move those who are interested in secondary capital through working with folks like Inclusiv and getting you that? Grants, we work with a lot of partners, corporate partners, who are interested in understanding how to serve you philanthropically, as well as other types of investments. We talked a little bit about the low-cost sticky capital, but also hoping that that's also an opportunity to save on the revenue side, or to save on the expense side, so that you have a consistent base of deposits when you need them. And then finally, impact reporting. And I say this because it's one of the areas that I'm most excited that we get to work with credit unions on. When we partner and when we interview so many of our credit unions, we learn that the vast majority have beyond inspiring stories. I mean, incredible stories. And also the vast majority do not have the resources in place to really capture them as frequently or as loudly as they wish they could. And so this is another area that we love to help. We offer free impact reporting and free profiles and storytelling for credit unions to really showcase the amazing work you're already doing, in an effort to both provide that so you can increase your membership and your kind of brand within your community, but also attract new investors, whether it's the corporate investors that we can bring you, or maybe it's a local foundation. Whatever it is that's going to be helpful for you, we want to make sure that the stories that you already have internally, the metrics or the good work you're already doing, if we can help tease that out and do that in a thoughtful way that's not a burden on your team and not requiring you to suddenly hire an impact director, we want to be your partner on that journey. Next slide. I'm going to just end with one example, and I'll give you an example and an invitation. So I'm proud to have Latino Community Credit Union as a CNote credit union partner. They are a great example of an inspiring, mission-driven credit union and deposit organization, over 20 years old. I know many of you have incredible track records in your community, and born out of a real need of community and community violence that was taking place, and the desire to really support that Latinx community with financial stability and safety. Latino Credit Union is fast growing, and they found themselves in a position of really needing, given their incredible growth, a diversified deposit base. And how do they get into the opportunity to work with a new group of investors that would provide them that low-cost, sticky deposit that really allows them to grow in the way that they wanted to grow in terms of product and services for their community. And they found what I think a lot of our credit unions have found over the years, which is their member base had a greater need for credit than the capacity to save and fund those loans. And that's something we've seen, especially before 2020, a very common pattern with a lot of our amazing credit union partners. And so they started working with CNote, again, free partner. We came working together They learned about us, we learned about them, pretty straightforward process, and really tried to understand what their needs were in terms of access to capital, access to growth. Helped install that faucet, like I said, so that they could access deposits when they need, and also helped as it relates to the impact stories and the impact profile to really continue to get the word out there in terms of their great mission and the great metrics they were doing. And so proud to have them as our member. Many more that I could speak to that, again, show up every day doing the strong work, and we're here to serve you and hopefully amplify that message with this. Would love to invite a select group of credit unions to be part of this next partnership. So if that is an area that you are interested in learning about, whether it's capital or visibility or larger partnership opportunities, that is my last invitation in terms of opportunities to learn more about what we do and explore one specific way to get involved and learn about ways to deepen your community engagement while growing strategically through this new base of impact investors. And I think next slide, that's it for me. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Kat, Mike, and Cathie. There was a lot of information there. So a reminder to the audience, for those of you that have been asking, that we will be sharing this deck and recording after the fact. So no need to take any more notes. We would love to answer any questions you do have. We have a few coming in. So go ahead and put those into the question box, and we'll go ahead and get started with those. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and throw you the questions, and then whoever would like to answer, please step up. The first question we have is, do you help CUs achieve low income designation?
So I could get started with that and say that we do. So as many, I'm not sure if the credit union asking the question is state chartered or federally chartered, but generally, you can kind of get that automatic low-income designation review by NCUA if you're a federally chartered credit union. We often, both with the low-income designation and the CDFI certification, we will often try to. There's a lot of credit unions that are able to get the low-income designation directly through NCUA by just sort of providing their data, and NCUA does the analysis, and that's also free of charge. But there's a lot of times where it doesn't quite fit. And one of the things that we do in our eligibility analysis is we sort of dig in a little bit beyond the screen that NCUA applies, which is generally just a geocoded screen. And we try to work through kind of reviewing other ways to look at your data set. But I would say if you haven't reached out to NCUA or your EDS or the local region or the CURE office, I guess probably at NCUA is the best place to get started. But if you have and you haven't been successful, we'd be happy to take a look at your data. And oftentimes it's not just whether you qualify, but it's like where it's taking a look at what's around you. And, is it about maybe a field of membership expansion that you want to take a look at? Is it about moving, within your existing field of membership? You might be highly concentrated in a couple of areas because you've had, different segs over time that, really drove your membership growth. And now you have an opportunity to look at and really target and promote and market to other segments. So sometimes it's a yes, no, like we could do a deeper dive and tell you, here you are. But I think oftentimes it's more of a ongoing conversation. Like, here's what you're going to want to do to move more into those communities, to gather more members from these low income areas and low income members. And then sort of take it from there. And there's sort of two different data sets that you use for the low income designation versus the CDFI certification, but the process and that journey towards incorporating it into the planning of the credit union and where the credit union is going to grow and how the credit union is going to grow, that's where the real kind of the most important part of the process is. So we'd be happy to get started and take a look and see what we can offer you as far as ideas if you're not immediately eligible.
That's extremely helpful. Thank you, Cathie. The next question coming in is, we are a LID, but not yet a CDFI. Are there other grants through CNote that we can apply for without being a CDFI? We're looking to make a major investment in technology to reach all of our members, especially in our target markets.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. And thank you for that question. Absolutely. And so one of the things that we're trying to work with our corporate partners is really educate them on the needs of credit unions, which again, we don't make up, we learn from you, from our conversations with our partners across the country. And one theme we hear consistently is what you're sharing, which is the real need for philanthropic capital to fund next level technology. I think, especially during this global pandemic, it really opened many of our eyes to what we actually need to do business right now in a virtual environment and serve our community and our members better. And so we are working very closely with a lot of corporations and their CSR and their corporate philanthropy side of the house to work on those types of grant opportunities. So certainly we're going to put our contact information up shortly. Feel free to reach out to us, and happy to share more about that, because a real need in the market and a real need for you and a lot of your peers that we want to be able to help with.
Thank you, Kat. Another question coming in for you, Cathie. Is the Inclusive Learning Center course virtual? And what are the qualifications to participate?
It is virtual. And we're in the midst of a course, cohort right now. And I believe we'll be reopening our next sort of application round when that concludes, probably around early February. There's really, the requirement is that you make the commitment of your time to do the full, I believe it's a 6-week course, and that you can commit the time to kind of stay with the cohort, because so much of the learning happens in the engagement with your group. And so we'll have a lot of, we start off with an overview of the CDFI field and kind of how different types of CDFI business models have developed over time. But there's always a really good, and there's a lot of reading and videos that, supplemental information that you can look at, but a lot of the learning really happens in those conversations. So the criteria is, at this point, it's kind of like a first come, first serve, go ahead and apply. And we want to accommodate, I think we try to accommodate 30 to 40 members in each cohort. And a commitment, a willingness to learn, a willingness to share, a lot of sidebar conversations about policies and how you can just sort of do some streamlining of some of your loan processes or some of your, changes of your underwriting criteria to be able to reach and better serve new markets. So anyway, it's just a real, an openness to the experience is really what we want. And a true desire to move more into this space, because it's not just like, how do I get certified? It's how do I invest and orient my institutions towards this mission? And it's really open to all with that desire.
Sounds like a really wonderful program. Thank you, Cathie. This next question, Kat, I believe is for you. For faucet style deposits, as you've described them, what's the timeline like? What can a credit union expect if they want to be able to work with CNote and turn that on and off?
Yeah, well, hopefully you can hear, we try to make the burden as light as possible on our credit union partners. So there is an onboarding step. So usually it's kind of 3 parts. We have an initial call to hear, what do you need? Where can we be most helpful? Is it around deposits? Is it around visibility? Is it around impact reporting? We do a second just to understand your organization a little bit better. And then we do an onboarding. And that's pretty much it. And all of that can happen literally with a matter of weeks. It's not a 6-month program. It's not a 1-year onboarding. Again, it really is more about trying to work within your current organization, your current bylaws, your current account system, your current system. And then again, that's when we come in that 3rd step to install the faucet. The turnaround time, like I said, could literally be a matter of weeks. And so, for example, if you say, oh, wow, we're launching this program and we absolutely need deposits in February, great. we can make that happen. If you say, actually, we're pretty good, but you know what? We're doing our capital planning now and Q4 is going to be tough. We'd love to be able to layer in those deposits in Q4. Fantastic. And you'll work with our team to make sure we get those for you. So a lot of flexibility on timing. Like I said, because the real emphasis is making sure, A, it really aligns with your capital strategy and sustainable growth. And then B, that it is not an added burden and added homework for you and your team in the long run.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think those are all the questions that have come in. I want to really thank all of you for participating today, especially our attendees. I know that you're all doing amazing work in your communities, and we are all here as a resource for you. So please, please, please take down Mike, Cathie, and Kat's emails. We will send this out so you'll have them handy and available to share with your teams. But we are here for you. Let us know how we can help. And Mike, Cathie, Kat, thank you so much for this presentation today. Any final words for the audience?
I just say, you know, this is an exciting journey to go on around thinking about impact and how to be making the most of your credit union. So I'm glad everybody's here and engaged.
I just say thanks for doing the incredible work you do. We know that you don't get nearly the amount of attention and recognition for doing this incredible work. So appreciate you times 1,000, and thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.